Somewhere inside the brain, there is a system whose only job is to make sure that tomorrow looks exactly like today. It does not care about goals. It does not care about ambitions, about the vision board on the wall, about the promise made to oneself in January. It cares about one thing: prediction. If today was survivable, then a tomorrow that looks like today is, by definition, also survivable. And a tomorrow that looks different, even if the difference is an improvement, is, by definition, unpredicted. And unpredicted, from the nervous system's perspective, is a synonym for dangerous. That system is not a flaw. It is the most successful survival mechanism in the history of biology. And it is the reason that the gap between wanting to change and actually changing is not a matter of motivation, willpower, or character. It is a matter of architecture. Carl Friston at University College London has spent over 2 decades developing a framework called predictive processing, sometimes referred to as the free energy principle. The core idea, in simplified form, is this: the brain is not primarily a reactive organ. It does not wait for the world to deliver information and then respond. It predicts. Constantly, automatically, below the threshold of conscious awareness, the brain is generating models of what should happen next based on what has happened before. Every sensation, every interaction, every moment of the day is compared against the brain's prediction. When reality matches the prediction, the system stays calm. When reality deviates from the prediction, when something unexpected occurs, the system generates a signal called prediction error. And prediction error, neurologically, is processed as a threat. Not always a large threat, often a small one. But the direction is consistent. Unexpected equals unsafe. This is not about danger in the obvious sense, not a tiger in the grass. This is about the texture of daily life. The brain predicts the commute, the routine, the emotional patterns of a relationship, the rhythm of a workday. And when any of those things change, when someone quits a job, moves to a new city, ends a relationship, starts a new practice, the volume of prediction errors spikes. Every unfamiliar element, the new route, the new social dynamics, the new schedule, the new version of the self that is being constructed, generates a small signal that says, "This was not predicted." And the accumulation of those signals does not feel like adventure or excitement. It feels like anxiety. A low, persistent hum of something being wrong. Not because anything is wrong, because the model has not caught up to the new reality. And that explains something that most self-improvement advice fails to address: why positive changes often feel terrible. Leaving a toxic job should feel liberating. Moving to the city someone always wanted to live in should feel exciting. Starting the meditation practice that every video recommends should feel calming. And sometimes it does, eventually. But in the first days and weeks, the predominant feeling is often discomfort, doubt, and a powerful urge to return to the previous state. Not because the previous state was better, because it was predicted. Lisa Feldman Barrett at Northeastern University has pushed this further with her constructionist theory of emotion, published in detail in 2017. Barrett argues that emotions are not hardwired reactions, but constructions, the brain's interpretation of body signals in the context of its predictions about the world. When the body signals discomfort, elevated heart rate, shallow breathing, restless energy, the brain does not have direct access to the cause. It infers the cause based on context, and the context, when someone is in the middle of a change, is: this is new, this was not predicted, something might be wrong. The brain, interpreting genuine physiological arousal, constructs the emotion fear or anxiety, not because there is a threat, but because the prediction model has been disrupted, and the body is reporting the cost of that disruption. That reframing matters because it changes the relationship to the discomfort. The standard advice: push through the fear, get comfortable being uncomfortable. The magic happens outside your comfort zone, treats the discomfort as an obstacle to overcome, as if the feeling is wrong and the person needs to fight through it. But if the feeling is the brain's honest report of a prediction disruption, fighting it is not courageous, it is exhausting, and it has a neurological cost. Peter Sterling and Joseph Iyer coined the term allostasis in 1988 to describe the brain's ability to anticipate needs and adjust systems in advance, as opposed to homeostasis, which is reactive. The distinction matters here. Homeostasis is the thermostat model. The temperature drops, the heater turns on, the temperature returns to the set point. Allostasis is the model that says the brain already knows winter is coming, and it starts adjusting before the temperature drops. It prepares. And when it cannot prepare, when the future is genuinely unpredictable, the system goes into a state of heightened readiness. Chronic heightened readiness. The same state that Bruce McEwen described as allostatic overload and that was discussed 2 videos ago. The cost of keeping the system on alert indefinitely. The self-improvement space often frames this as the comfort zone problem, as if the solution is simply to step outside the familiar. But the research suggests something more nuanced. The problem is not that people are in a comfort zone. The problem is that the brain defines comfortable as predictable, and every act of genuine change is by definition a move into the unpredictable. The solution is not to override the system. The solution is to reduce the prediction error load so the system can adapt without overheating. That is not a slogan. It is a strategy, and it has 3 components drawn from the research on predictive processing and allostatic regulation. The first, reduce the scope of change to a single variable. The brain can handle 1 new element embedded in a familiar context. It cannot handle 5 new elements simultaneously. Consider what happens when someone attempts a comprehensive life overhaul, quits a job, moves to a new city, starts a new routine, ends a relationship, and begins therapy all within the same month. From the outside, this looks courageous. From the brain's perspective, this is a catastrophic prediction failure across every domain simultaneously. The commute is unpredicted. The social landscape is unpredicted. The daily rhythm is unpredicted. The emotional baseline is unpredicted. The cumulative prediction error load exceeds the system's capacity to process, and the result is not growth, it is shutdown. Anxiety, regret, the overwhelming urge to go back. Research on successful life transitions, including career changes, relocations, and relationship shifts, consistently shows that narrowing the change to one domain while keeping others stable produces better outcomes, faster adaptation, and significantly lower anxiety. The brain needs anchor points. Stability in one area provides the foundation that allows instability in another without the whole structure collapsing. The practical implication: if the change is a new job, keep the apartment, the morning routine, the social circle. If the change is a move, keep the job, even temporarily, even remotely. Give the prediction model enough familiar data points that it can absorb the unfamiliar ones without tripping every alarm in the system. The second, pre-expose the prediction model. The brain fears what it cannot simulate, but simulation is trainable. Mental rehearsal, not the vague visualization of success that the wellness space promotes, but specific, detailed imagining of the actual experience, including the discomfort, the awkwardness, the moments of doubt, and the desire to retreat, has been shown to measurably reduce prediction error when the actual situation arrives. Not because the rehearsal eliminates the novelty, because it reduces the gap. The brain has already run a partial simulation. The sensory landscape is not entirely unfamiliar, and a smaller gap between prediction and reality generates a smaller alarm signal. A person who has mentally walked through the first day at a new job, including the lunch eaten alone, the names forgotten, the feeling of incompetence that will be present whether it is justified or not, will experience less prediction error on the actual first day than someone who shows up with nothing but optimism and a new notebook. That is not the same as catastrophizing. Catastrophizing imagines the worst and dwells there. Pre-exposure imagines the uncomfortable and moves through it, including the moment where the discomfort passes and ordinary competence returns. The whole arc, not just the difficult part. The third, normalize the discomfort as data, not danger. This is the conceptual reframe that the science supports, and it is the one that changes the most. When the anxiety of change arrives, and it will arrive, because prediction error is a real neurological event, the interpretation matters enormously. Something is wrong activates the threat processing cascade. Shallow breathing, elevated heart rate, narrowed attention, the urge to flee or freeze. The model is updating activates a different circuit, one associated with learning, curiosity, and integration. Barrett's research demonstrates that the same physiological arousal, the same heart rate increase, the same cortisol signature, can be constructed by the brain as anxiety or as anticipation, depending entirely on the conceptual framework available in the moment. A person who interprets the racing heart before a presentation as danger experiences fear. A person who interprets the identical sensation as readiness experiences alertness. The body signal is the same, the construction is different, and the construction determines the behavior that follows. This does not mean the discomfort disappears. The prediction error is real. The body's response is real. But the relationship to that response changes, and the relationship is what determines whether a person stays with the new pattern long enough for the brain's model to update, or retreats to the old one, because the alarm felt like evidence that the change was wrong. And there is a timeline to this that rarely gets mentioned. The prediction model updates, but not instantly. Research on habit formation and neural adaptation suggests that the brain requires roughly 3 to 8 weeks of consistent exposure to a new pattern before the prediction error signal begins to diminish. During that window, the discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is the sound of the system recalibrating. And knowing that, having a realistic expectation that the first month of any significant change will feel wrong, will feel anxious, will feel like a mistake, is itself a form of pre-exposure. The discomfort was predicted, and predicted discomfort, paradoxically, is less distressing than unexpected discomfort. The brain can handle what it anticipated. None of this is motivational. And that is the point. The brain does not need motivation to change. It needs a reduced prediction error load, stable anchor points, pre-exposure to novelty, a conceptual framework that does not treat its own alarm system as the enemy, and a realistic timeline for adaptation. That is less inspiring than just do it. It is less shareable than the magic happens outside your comfort zone. It is considerably more effective. That is the biology. Thursday. What happens when fear does not look like fear at all, when it disguises itself as something much more reasonable? Something most people have blamed themselves for their entire adult life. And the disguise is so effective that even naming it changes everything.